In this video, we will cover section 4-7, day 1, the quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula allows us to solve a quadratic equation similarly to how factoring does. So to solve a quadratic equation, you have to solve to set it equal to 0, and then you use your formula as shown below, substituting the values of a, b, and c. The formula says that x equals the opposite of b, or negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a, or 2 times the value of a. Now this image is another example of another way you can use the quadratic formula. What this allows us to do is identify what a, b, and c are and see how you can plug them into the formula using shapes. So for example, the number in front of the x squared is the value of a, which is in the box, and we can see below that we have two squares that we would have to fill in, next to the 4 and next to the 2. Additionally, the second value in the oval is the value of b, which is next to the x, and we can see below that that's used in the first part where it's the opposite of b, or the negative b, is the value that's squared under the square root. And then lastly, we have the value of c, which is shown in the heart, which we can use at the end of our square root. And while it looks a little silly, it helps us to be able to evaluate into this formula relatively easily. In this first example, the first thing we have to do is identify the values of a, b, and c. Now, the number in front of the square term is a, which in this case is 5. So we can first say that a equals 5. And we can fill into the box below. The next number is, or the number in front of the constant, which is just the variable, is the value of b. So in this case, b is equal to 2, which I can fill in next to x. And then lastly, the number that's just by itself is our value of c, which in this case is negative 115. So I can fill that into the heart. Now looking at the formula, we can see that the first thing it asks for is the opposite of b, which if we look, the b, or the oval, has a value of 2. So we can fill in a 2 into the first blank. Then then it has the plus or minus the square root of an oval squared, or a b squared. So I can fill in a 2 as well. Minus 4 times the value of a, or a square, which looking above, we know the value of a is 5. So I can fill in a 5. Then it's times the value of c, which is the heart. And from looking above, the value of c is negative 115. So I can fill in a negative 115. And then it's divided by 2 times the value of a, which again, looking back at the original, is the box, is the value of a. And from our original equation, the value of a is 5. Now from here, we're just going to rewrite everything with parentheses wherever we see a shape. So for example, we would say that x equals negative, and normally it was the oval with the 2. So instead I'm going to put a set of parentheses. I'm going to fill in the 2. Then we continue, so it's plus or minus, just copying everything down, the square root of. Then it would be the oval with the 2 squared. So I'm going to use parentheses, fill in the 2, and raise it to the second power. Then it's minus 4. Next would be the 5 with the box. So instead of writing the 5, instead of writing the box, I'm going to put the parentheses with a 5. And then next would be the heart with the negative 115. So I'm going to put parentheses, negative 115, divided by the whole thing, 2 times, and instead of the box with the 5, it's going to be for the parentheses with the 5. And for the purposes of today's lesson, this would be your final answer so far. Now for the next example, again, the first thing we need to do is figure out the value of a, b, and c. So the value of a is the number in front of the square term, which in this case, since there is a number, we can assume that there is a 1. So this means that a equals 1, so you can fill a 1 into the box. Then the next number is the value of b, which in this case is negative 12. So I can write down that b equals negative 12 and fill in the negative 12. And then lastly, the last number, or the constant, is the 21, and that's our value of c. So I can say c equals 21 and fill in a 21. And then from there, I'm substituting into the formula. So it's x equals the opposite of the oval, which is the value of b from above, so I can fill in a negative 12, plus or minus the square root of the oval squared, or the b squared, so it's negative 12, minus 4 times the box, which is the value of a, and in this case the value of a is 1. So I can fill in a 1, and then we have a heart as our next term, and the heart is represented by the value of c, which from above the value of c is 21. So I can fill in a 21 over 2 times the value of a, which we, or the box, which we already identified to have a value of 1. Now from here, we're going to rewrite everything with parentheses instead of the shapes. So it would be x equals the negative, and instead of the oval, I'm going to put parentheses. My value of b is negative 12. So it's negative times negative 12 plus or minus the square root of. It's the value of b squared in the oval, so I'm going to put parentheses for the oval. I can fill in a negative 12 squared minus 4. Next is the box with the 1, so I can put a parentheses for the box and fill in a 1. Then I have the heart with the 21, so I can fill in the heart. I can make the heart into the parentheses, so it would be 21 all over 2 times the box with the 1, so it's times with the parentheses, a 1. And this would be our final answer for this scenario.